All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for having me here on Sport Techie, and thanks for joining me for the next 20 minutes. My name is Dr. Greg Rose, and I would like to share with you some of the things that we do at TPI and some of the other companies that I work with or have founded. Actually, the screen you're looking at is a little bit about my background. I actually run 5 companies currently right now. Probably the one that most people know me from is TPI. This is a company we started in 2003, myself and Dave Phillips. It was founded to help support Titleist, the golf company, to take care of their players, to try and optimize performance on any of their players. So that's TPI, and we still do that today. In 2014, we actually launched a company called Racket Fit. That was with the United States Professional Tennis Association. It's also a company that's focused on trying to optimize performance with tennis players. We teach certifications not only through TPI, but also with Racket Fit for medical professionals, fitness professionals, and coaches. 2 years ago, we started a company called On Base University. This is the same thing, working with baseball and softball players. So three main sports that I focus on: golf, baseball, softball, and tennis. And then I'm also one of the owners of FMS, or Functional Movement Systems. This is probably one of the largest movement-based companies in the world. This is a company where we do basic functional movements, screening on athletes and just anybody that's looking to try and optimize their movements. And then lastly, I run a company called Sport Tree, and this is a company focused on really increasing youth participation in sports. We actually have a big project with the Mexican Soccer Federation right now called Football a Metro, and it utilizes a couple apps to try and help gamify development of soccer. And so you can see these are the companies that I run, and I like to start my presentation just by saying, like, when I'm in an elevator and somebody asks me, hey, what's your thing? What do you do? I always like to start with telling you what's my thing. And for me, my thing is pretty simple, is I'm always trying to make players and coaches understand the link between their body and their sport. And this is one of those skills that I think is critically important, is understanding for an athlete how their performance is being affected in a positive or negative way by their body, right? And I think a lot of athletes they know it's important, but they're not sure how important it is, or maybe what the problem is that's preventing them from moving on to the next level. Now, the screen you're looking at now, this is our facility that we operate out of. This is the Titleist Performance Institute in Oceanside, California. If you're ever between LA and San Diego and you want to take a tour, come on by. We're in Oceanside. It's actually 30 acres of research and development developed by Titleist. Not only do we work with the best golfers in the world here, but we also, like I said, bring in other athletes, from football players to tennis players to lacrosse to baseball. It's a pretty cool, special place. This is a picture of our diagnostic bay. I know this is Sport Techie, so I want to show you guys all the tech that we have. This is where we take our players and we do our first biomechanics assessment with them. We use multiple types of systems out there. We have a 20-camera Raptor system from Motion Analysis. This is primarily used by the engineers at Titleist to really dial in equipment fitting, but we can use this obviously to evaluate our players as well. We actually have a 12-sensor Polhemus electromagnetic system that we've been using for a long time. I actually love this system. It has some of the wires that help power the sensors, but still gives us some really great information, especially when cameras can't see what we're looking for. Like if I want to put a sensor inside the pocket or inside of a pitcher's glove. This is an example. This is Billy Horschel from the PGA Tour hitting off of one of the Polhemus systems. You can see they're also standing on force and pressure. We use Body Track as a pressure trace, and we also have 2 AMTI force platforms. We have the ability to, like I said, to evaluate all types of athletes. This is our little short portable mound that we brought in. I always tell my pitchers, I'm like, this is what you're used to. You're used to throwing off of a fake mound into a lacrosse net on a golf driving range. All kidding aside, we make it work. We actually are able to evaluate athletes from all different shapes, sizes, and movements. We also have, of course, all the inertial sensors. This is the K-Vest. So these are Bluetooth sensors that allow us to real quickly be able to get some data on our players, take them outside, and get some pretty cool information. So it's obviously, we have this incredible lab. All of our equipment is also portable. We can actually go out to the tennis court, hook people up, or of course we can do it in the lab. And all of our equipment is daylight, daylight capable, like the Eagle Raptor system for motion analysis, full daylight. We can take it outside into a sand bunker and be able to get information and data. We also look at a lot of the latest tech in the fitness and obviously physical conditioning or movement world. This is actually one of the devices we just added about 2 years ago called Kangatech. This is from Australian Rules Football. It's a device that we use to test isometrically all the muscles on our players, and we can quickly create databases. Like this is an example of an MLB player where we test all the muscles around their hip. We can actually compare their right hip versus their left hip and looking for symmetry, looking for any imbalances. The black circle in the middle that you see on your screen, that represents average MLB. So I can see if you're above strength, below strength. The gray is 1 standard deviation above. The gray below is 1 standard deviation below. So you can see on this player, hip internal rotation on his left hip is a little below the strength that we see with baseball. So we can kind of target our strength and conditioning programs as well. We use all kinds of testing for power, movement, and that's really what I want to talk about today, right? So I want to talk about this, and this is the number one thing that athletes that come into our facility ask us. And they say, why can't I do this? In other words, they've either felt something or they've done something in their performance once or twice and they just don't know how to replicate it, or they used to be able to do something and they had an injury and now they can't do it again, but they're always trying to figure out, like, why can't I do this? And this is where our search usually begins. And there's usually one of 3 main reasons, or let's say 4 main reasons why you can't do something. Number 1, it could be a physical problem. You can't physically do it. Number 2, it's just a technical problem. Number 3 is maybe your equipment is the problem. Or number 4 is maybe your mind is not allowing you to do these. And what I want to focus on is that physical part, because that's a part that's really overlooked by a lot of coaches. Now, I always say, listen, when you go to a doctor, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to check your vital signs. And vital signs are, the most basic functions that your body has, like temperature or your pulse or your heart rate. And these are really important for determining like what treatments we're going to do with players, gives you critical information as a doctor or practitioner on what's happening. It also helps us get feedback on if our treatments are working. Well, in my world, we always believe that movement should be a vital sign, right? Like one of the most important things that you never want to lose in your life is the ability to move. And for an athlete, for sure, movement is a vital sign, and especially sports-specific movement baselines, like things that we can actually look to see, can you physically do these movements? Or they help us demonstrate if they're missing, deficient, or dysfunctional. Because what's really important, what we've found is we call this the body-sport connection, is that when you can't do something physically, let's just say in this basic movement test, well, it's pretty common that it's going to show up when we look at your technique, right? And, this kind of all started for us back in 1996. It's when I started my practice. I'm actually a chiropractor in Washington, D.C. We had some friends, Gray Cook, Lee Burton, that started a company called FMS. It's one of the companies that I'm also one of the owners now. But they started with this basic movement screen called the functional movement screen. And that functional movement screen started in 1996. It got picked up by Reebok University, started going all over the world. And now you'll see, we have a station at the NFL Combine where we screen using that functional movement screen the best football players coming into the league. It's used by the Special Forces in the United States. With 2011, came into the NHL. So we're one of the stations in the NHL Combine. And basically that functional movement screen allowed us to kind of see what you can and can't do just from basic functional movement. But we also, now at TPI, when you come in, we not only do we do functional movement screen under motion capture, we've actually developed sports-specific screens. Like, so there's basic functional movement, like can you squat, can you flex, can you stand on one leg? And then there's sports-specific movements, like can you disassociate your upper body from your lower body, right? Things that athletes need to be able to do, or wrist range of motions. And you'll see we use our motion capture system to look at their movements. And we're analyzing their movements, not only how much they can do it, but we're noticing the sequence in which they do these movements. And then we actually look at them actually do their sport. Whether they're a golfer, we'll have them swing, like this is a PGA Tour player here, or if they're a baseball player, it doesn't matter what you are. We look at your basic movements, your sport-specific movements, and then we actually watch you do your sport or your skill. And now what's really cool about what we do is we basically take those two and we try and match them together. And this is the saying that I always say, and I'll say it a couple times here. Movement screening doesn't tell me what you can or can't do. It just helps me explain why you do it that way. So in other words, the reason we do movement screening is not to say, oh, if you can't do this, you can't be a Major League Baseball pitcher. I believe you can always figure out how to pitch. But this helps me understand why you do it that way. And maybe I should encourage that as a coach and not try and stop you, because maybe that's the most efficient for your body. For example, I'd like to give you an example. Here's a simple basic movement test, the pelvic rotation test, right? So this is Brad Faxon, been on PGA Tour, Champions Tour forever. All we do is we say, hey, Brad, let me see you just rotate your lower body, but don't rotate your upper body, right? And you can see he did that really easy. Here's a Major League Baseball pitcher. I say, don't move your shoulders, just rotate your lower body. This ability to disassociate is critically important for athletes. Now, if you watch this young lady here, the softball player, it just looks like she's hiking. The hips go up and down. It doesn't look rotary, right? If I check out this gentleman here and I'm asking him to disassociate, he has no ability. Lower body doesn't move, upper body. Even if I hold his shoulders, I'll stabilize for you, he still can't disassociate. Now, why does that matter? Okay, let's go to one of the best golfers in the world. Here's Brooks Koepka. If I take Brooks and I draw a line up the shaft of his club, that's called the original shaft plane line. If I take Brooks, just like almost every PGA Tour player, up to where his lead arm is parallel with the ground and draw the shaft again, that creates something we call the slot. The majority of PGA Tour players at this point in time now, they will start their lower body first. And while they do that, the club will drop. So the lower body disassociates, allows the club to drop in that slot, and that gets on what we call plane. And if you're on plane, it makes it really easy to hit great golf shots. You'll see, even with Brooks, if we take him to impact, and this is the impact plane line, you'll see as he rotates through impact, that club stays on that plane the entire time from behind the ball through the ball. And that is what allows him to be such a great player. But that all started with that disassociation of being able to rotate the lower body independent of the upper body, right? So, for example, here's another player on the left. If I take the original shaft plane, I take my player up to the top. This is Aaron Oberholzer, former PGA Tour player here. Draw the slot here. I have him go ahead and start the downswing. And again, his lower body will start first. There's that disassociation, allows the club to drop in the slot. And then from there, he should be able to get on plane and now just rotate. And it's why these guys are so good at what they do. And a lot of this is driven by their physical ability to be able to disassociate. So we check that pelvic rotation test. Now, let's say the gentleman on the right can't do the pelvic rotation test. What do we tend to see in their swing? So, for example, one of the most common altered patterns of movement in golf is something called over the top. And a lot of golfers know what I'm talking about here. But if I take my golfer on the right and I draw the original shaft plane line here, again, we'll take our player back until their lead arm is parallel with the ground. Let's have them go back and about right here. We draw the slot. Now, if you can't start with your lower body and you start with your upper body instead, or if you start with both of them at the same time, usually what's going to happen is the club is going to go over the top of that slot. And you can see how steep that club is above the slot. Where most of the tour players are in between those two lines, that helps them get on plane. This gentleman is going to be totally off plane, and he's swinging from outside to inside. And what that does is it creates the dreaded slice that you hear so much about, right? So, like I said before, movement screening doesn't tell me if you can play golf or not. It doesn't tell me how good you can be. It doesn't tell me what you can and can't do. It just helps me understand why you do it that way. Oh, you can't pelvic disassociate. You can't disassociate your body from your lower body. Makes sense why you come over the top. And as a coach, I can't just tell you, okay, let's do it if you can't physically do it. Another example, let's go to baseball real quick. One of my favorite examples of this is called the lunge with extension test. We have you get in your stride length, keep your front knee in line with your front heel, and have you raise your hands and try and extend back as far as you can. And if I pause that there for a second, you'll see that his shoulders get past his back knee. That's spine extension. That's great spine extension. If I look at pitchers, most pitchers, and I'll show you a couple examples here, they can extend their spine great. So gets the front knee in line with the front heel, hands up, and now looking at that back knee, you should be able to get your shoulder, top of your shoulder past that line. No problem, right there. Let's watch another one here. Again, see if you can get his shoulders past his back knee. He's got a little shorter stride, but no problem. This is very common with pitchers because that extension is what allows them to do a couple of really important things. Number one, allows them to have command, stay upright, maintain posture. But number two is the more you extend your spine, you can actually, it's easier for you to externally rotate your shoulder. It helps them get to that layback position in the shoulder, right? So like, for example, here's a coach, right? And if you watch a normal person do this, this is what you might see. Of course, nowhere near the line, right? If I go to Japan, we'll try one here, one of the Japanese players here, and you can see there's just no spine extension there. Can't get to the line. So now what do we see if we go to the actual mechanics? If I go to Major League Baseball and I take my players to maximum external rotation or layback, at that point in time, if you look at their spine, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's this massive extension. That movement is so critical for maintaining your upright posture and for getting that external rotation or that layback. You can see here on DeGrom on the right, you'll see that arching of the lower back. That's simulating that extension in the spine, and it's allowing them to get that shoulder back. I'm always looking to make sure they have that at maximum external rotation. But if I take this young player here, I check his lunge with extension test, he can't extend. It's no surprise to me when I watch him pitch, when he gets the maximum external rotation, I always try and find the point where it's the farthest back, and let's say it's right, I'll go back a couple frames, about right there, and I look at the line, look at his lower back. You can see he's already flexed. Now, this could be because maybe he just didn't know he's supposed to be extended, or if I looked at his movement screen and I saw that he can't do a lunge with extension, well, now I understand why he's pitching this way. He doesn't have the ability to extend. And now if he actually gets full external rotation in the shoulder, he's having to do more of that from the shoulder than from the spine, which can lead to shoulder problems, right? So as I've said twice already, or 3 times already, movement screening doesn't tell me what you can and can't do. It just really helps me explain why you do it this way. And to me, this is the key. So what do? We actually have an app for TPI. We have an app for On Base. We have one for Racket Fit coming out for tennis. And what we do is we basically take our players through this movement assessment screen. In the app, we actually grade their screens. We enter in the screen based on watching them do the movement, and it rates and ranks them. It says red means we're pretty confident this is going to affect your mechanics. Yellow means it might. Green means it's okay. Once you enter in all the data, it kind of rates and ranks it, and then you can actually use our little AI engine. You press on the little app, and it says, all right, based on thousands and thousands of players and movement screens that we've done, based on your movement screen, this is what we predict might happen in your swing. And you'll see, like, it'll give you an actual percentage, like 96% of these players lose posture or early extend. And it'll actually even show you what parts of your body might be affecting different parts of your golf swing, like your dress or your backswing. And it's amazing on how accurate these AI engines are. And I know a lot of the speakers are talking about machine learning and AI, but once we have that movement screening data, which I think is so important, we can literally predict what your golf swing is going to look like, your pitching is going to look like, your hitting is going to look like, your fast pitch softball. And as a coach, when you are able to do that, it gives a player a lot of confidence that you actually can help them. It gives them an excuse that, hey, maybe my body is part of the problem, but it also gives them hope that, hey, if I can fix my body, I could probably actually fix my mechanics. And so this is kind of what we do every day, is we're trying to connect the body to the swing. Now, what's next from a sport tech standpoint? So I feel that what's happening now, we're working with a bunch of companies, and I feel like we're right there, right at the cusp of this. Within a year to 2 years, you'll be able to take your smartphone, right? Because of all the machine learning and all the apps that are doing this right now, be able to film a movement screen. It'll capture the movement screen, look for any asymmetries or abnormalities or dysfunctional, those vital sign baseline movements that are off. Then actually have you do your skill, throw a ball, swing, hit. Once we have those two, we can actually instead of predicting, we can actually measure the connection. And then once we see that, hey, if you can't physically do this and computer sees that you're actually doing it in your swing or when you pitch, we can get really, really specific with your exercise and workout programs. And that to me is really exciting, and that's the future of what we're looking at, whether it's with golf, whether it's baseball, whether it's tennis or FMS, or even with our soccer projects. Once I have that baseline information and I know exactly what you're doing, it gets scary on how quickly we can eliminate these problems and make players play their optimum. Thanks, everybody, for spending this 20 minutes with me. This is, if you're interested in our stuff, functionalmovement.com, mytpi.com, racketfit.com, and OnBaseU. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thanks so much.